I'm Badass Cat with Badass Red Dress Society, and welcome to our workshop tonight. I call it 50 Shades of Non-Monogamy. It's demystifying non-monogamy, polyamory, open relationships, and other non-traditional relationship configurations. So I won't be looking at that for the rest of the cameras. I'm just doing it for now, so when people see it. So we are filming, and we are going to be doing this workshop style. So I have 3 different segments that I'll be going through. We'll have a little discussion in between each one, and we'll have a nice conversation. So thank you, ladies, for being here. And we'll do a quick pause, and then I'll get into it. All right, so we are doing our workshop on demystifying non-monogamy. And between white and black, there are many shades of gray. And just as many words to describe gray, things like steel, silver, ash, and lead. When it comes to relationship styles, there is monogamy and non-monogamy. And there's a lot of shades of non-monogamy that happen, and we're going to demystify some of those tonight. So believe it or not, most people are non-monogamous. Fortunately, about 50% of non-monogamy is cheating, and it's done unethically. And cheating, when someone is cheating in their monogamous relationship, they are in fact engaging in non-monogamy. So even though people don't think about it in that term, they are having 2 relationships. They're having a relationship with their committed partner, but then they're having this outside relationship with someone else, whether it's emotional or sexual or romantic, and they are engaging in an unethical non-monogamy. And so our culture and our society demonstrates to us through a wide variety of media that monogamy is the only acceptable way to have a relationship. And that cheating is just kind of the dark side of that. And so people tend to accept it, even though it's something that is unwanted. And there's even websites and dating sites that cater to people who are cheating. And so it really is pervasive among our society today that cheating is acceptable, and it's actually non-monogamy. But people don't think about it in those terms because they want to fit the norm of monogamy. Things like our music, our movies, our advertising, TV, all focus on having that one and only. And sometimes when that one and only doesn't happen, then we go through this massive heartbreak. Or when love goes bad. All the TV shows, all these different media things show us that romantic movies use the premise of cheating, or the premise of having to decide between this person and that person. And yet the ads also depict happy, monogamous, and mostly heteronormative male and female couples getting a new car, going out to dinner, or going on vacation. So we're bombarded with these concepts and these images of monogamy, and we don't even realize how ingrained it is in our belief systems. So monogamy is an either-or proposition, which is why cheating is so prevalent, because when you're faced with, I can only have one, but really I want more, I have to make that choice. It's either this or that, this person or that person. But in order for me to have both, then I've got to go underground, and I've got to go around kind of doing something that I don't really want to do. But in order for me to fit the image, this is what I have to do. Ethical and consensual non-monogamy is a both and proposition. So it provides people with an opportunity where they can have this person and that person, and this person or that person. And it really opens up the possibilities of having the people that you desire to have in your life in an ethical and consensual way for everyone involved. Ethical and Consensual Non-Monogamy, ECNM, makes up 15 to 20% of couples in the United States. This was a recent study that was done. And that's actually more than the LGBTQ community, which stands somewhere between 6 and 10%. So how can so many people be engaged in non-monogamy, but no one really knows about it? It's because people who are living ECNM lives are living where the LGBT community was 40 years ago. We're all in the closet. And the reason that we're in the closet is because society looks upon us in a very negative way because of the monogamous norm. And so it's really difficult for people, just as it was for LGBT people, to step out and create a new norm in our society. And there are some pioneers that are out there right now that are doing podcasts, that have written books, that are speaking out. There has been a few television shows that have come up. But it's still very fringe, and it's still very kind of looked upon as that strange, odd, outside the normative process of having relationships. And so people really are just on that verge right now of understanding what non-monogamy is and just barely beginning to think about it as something that could be where LGBT people are today. And so that's one of the things that I continue to work on in my personal life as a pioneer and as a trailblazer. And so in this workshop, I want to share the top 5 shades of non-monogamy, kind of defining the different shades and what they are. And then we will talk about the difference between a monogamous mindset and a non-monogamous mindset. And last, we will learn about how values and morals play out in non-monogamous and monogamous relationships. So the first shade of non-monogamy is polyamory. And polyamory is one of the shades of non-monogamy that's getting the most attention in the media right now. So I believe there was a show called Married and Dating. There's been a few other shows that have come out that are focusing on the concept of polyamory. So polyamory comes from both Greek and Latin words. The Greek word poly for many, and the Latin word amor for love, meaning many loves. People involved can be of any gender, having relationships with any gender, and generally with a level of equality about how each person can engage with others. So it provides a lot of agency and autonomy for the individuals that are engaged in this relationship style. Polyamorous relationships, anyone can have a relationship as they choose, as long as it is openly and honestly discussed. And most people who are polyamorous will tell you that their relationship is more about the love and the connection rather than just sex. But usually sex is involved. For some who enter into poly relationships, they might find that they have partners that have varying needs, emotionally or sexually, intellectually or romantically. And some partners may meet one or all or a few of these needs. Within poly relationships, there are many ways to configure a relationship. And there's a few that are kind of popular or kind of the most known forms of polyamory. So the first one is solo poly. So someone who practices solo poly is an individual who lives alone and has multiple ongoing relationships with the knowledge of all persons involved. So it could be someone who is, say, a single mom, and she lives on her own, but she has multiple relationships, whether they're lovers or friends with benefits, or they could be a wide variety of connections that she has, but she's open and honest with all the different people that she's with, whether they're male or female. The second is called closed poly or polyfidelity. It's a group, usually between 3 and 4 people, but it could be more, who are in a committed relationship with each other and do not allow anyone within the group to date or have other partners outside that specific committed relationship. This is very closely related to monogamy, just with additional people. And some people also call it a group marriage. The third is open poly. This is creating a variety of relationships, some which may overlap, having shared partners, or allowing dating and partnerships within a core group or outside of the group. Some relationships within open poly may be defined with higher levels of commitment and may take priority of time or resources. So an example could be a married couple. They have children, but they have, say, a girlfriend and maybe a boyfriend, where they engage at varying levels with those 2 different people, but the core couple, the married couple, will be spending more time and resources together because they have a family. So depending on how they engage with the other members, they may become part of the family, or they may be separate from the family. And the last one is relationship anarchy. And it's not as ominous as it sounds, but it has to do with how you define or not define a specific relationship with what we call kind of categories. So within relationship anarchy, people tend not to use labels such as husband or wife, boyfriend or girlfriend, lover or partner. They may just say, this is my companion, and this is someone that I see. They don't really utilize what we call our normative labels for how we define a relationship, because they see that each individual relationship that they have is unique into how those 2 or multiple people relate to each other. And so utilizing labels doesn't feel comfortable because each relationship really defines itself within the 2 people or the 3 people that are included in that relationship. So the second shade is called open relationships. Now some people use the term polyamory, open relationships, and they tend to kind of blend them all together. But there is a distinct difference. And for those that practice open relationships, whereas poly tends to be more about the love and the connection, open relationships actually tend to be more about sex. So it could be a committed couple who decides to spice up or add some sexual partners into their bedroom or their relationship on a kind of infrequent activity level, where maybe they're swinging, maybe there's different people that they engage with, but it really tends to be more about the sex rather than making emotional or romantic connections. For some, they utilize what's called a don't ask, don't tell policy, where if they're playing separately or they're engaging separately with people outside their marriage or their relationship, then one or both people don't want to know about what they're actually doing or who they're engaging with. They've given consent to say, yes, you can go do this, but I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know who you're with, I don't want to know what you're doing. You just go do that, and then you come back to me. And so that's something that is engaged with open relationships. It can be in other types of relationships as well, but that tends to be a part of open relationships for some couples. Others do want to hear about their partner's experience and utilize that as a way to really enhance their own relationships. So yes, go out, have sex, have some fun with somebody, and then come back and tell me all about it, because that gets me going and that makes me more attracted to you, and that can be something fun that we get out into our own sex life. And so it really depends on the couple and what they negotiate and what they decide that they want for themselves. Some open relationships explore individually and some explore together. So they may invite people to their bedroom together, or they might explore together in other avenues or venues. So the shade number 3 is swinging. So when people think of swinging, I'm sure there's this image of a 1970s shag carpet and keys in the bowl type process. And that's really not quite how swinging goes these days. It can, but there's a lot of different ways that swinging can happen in today's practices. And there are many couples who consider themselves monogamous. They will call themselves a monogamous couple, and they engage in swinging because they view their relationship as an emotional monogamous relationship, even though they're having sex outside of just the two of them. So many couples play together, and there are some that will allow their partners and choose that they play separately. And again, there may be some don't ask, don't tell in swinging, but we find that a lot of swinging couples really tend to do this together, that it's a together process, and it's something that they enjoy making friends that they will have sex with, or sometimes there's clubs or large parties that they find out in the community, and they can engage with a variety of people. Swinging can kind of also on its own spectrum be everything from a one night, I don't even know your name, just we're gonna have sex, to having friends that they play with regularly and engage with outside the bedroom as well. So swinging has a wide range of configurations that it can take. Some people call it wife swapping. It's another term that is used for swinging. And some people also call it living the lifestyle. So there's some different terminologies that are used. And I think lifestyle is also a term that's used sometimes for poly, sometimes for kink, or the BDSM community. So lifestyle sometimes just gives a broad spectrum that it's something that we engage with as part of who I am and the life that I'm living. The fourth shade is called solo play, which is different than solo poly. So solo play could work for couples who have mismatched libidos or have different sexual interests, such as kink or fetishes. So this is having the ability to explore something away from your partner with consent that your partner would not engage with you in. So it could be something, a kink or a BDSM fetish that your partner doesn't want to engage in, but knows that this is something that you're very interested in and provides consent for you to go and explore that on your own with someone else. And again, some people want to hear about the experiences and some people they don't. These couples could potentially move into a mono-poly style relationship where one person remains monogamous and the other person may be poly or have multiple partners. And so that's a possibility that can happen in any of the levels of the shades that we've discussed at this point. And that takes a lot of open communication and a lot of understanding and working through for one partner to remain monogamous and the other person to be non-monogamous. And some couples find that they don't enjoy playing together, and so they may even go to a party, but they will play separately with people and then come back together at the end of the evening. And the last shade is friends with benefits. This is one of my personal favorites. Some people create small groups of friends, which they feel very safe with and comfortable to share sex, either individually or in small groups or together with their partner. Some people become very close with their friends with benefits. Sometimes they travel together, sometimes they just go out and do things together outside a sexual relationship. I personally enjoy doing this, and it's one of the things that I find expands myself as a person, is that I get to share myself in ways beyond what a traditional relationship would provide for me. And then I'm going to offer a bonus shade because one of the things that people tend to confuse is the concept between polyamory and polygamy. And polygamy is mostly practiced as one man with many wives. It's more of a religious or a cultural aspect of relationships. However, it can also be practiced as polygamy. Polygamy is the one man with many wives, and polyamory is one wife with many husbands. It's more rare, but it can exist in different cultures. And the concept of polygamy is based on a power dynamic where one person is the head of the family or the group, and the others are more followers within the group. The person who is one of the wives or the husbands and followers do not have the level of agency that someone in a polyamorous relationship would have. Generally, this truly is set up as the person in power may choose as many partners as they desire, but then those partners are not allowed to have any partners. And so sometimes people use the word harem also in kind of describing a polygamy or a polygamous style relationship, and a harem is one man with many women. A reverse harem is one woman with many men. And so with that, we can open the discussion or any questions around the different shades of polyamory, of non-monogamy, and maybe people want to share experiences or questions.
And it's kind of on like a hierarchy, because I do describing things where I kind of hit some of them all at the same time.
Great. And that's one of the beautiful things that I find about non-monogamy. And when I first entered into living a non-monogamous life, was that I got to choose what I wanted. It was for me to decide. It wasn't for anyone else to decide how many partners I had, what type of partners I had, what level of engagement I had with them. It truly is my choice, and I get to create that. And while these are kind of the general concepts of non-monogamy, it really comes down to the individuals and what they decide to create for themselves. And so there's parts of me, I agree, that are relationship anarchists, that are open poly, that are swinging, that are friends with benefits, that there's a whole variety of things that I bring into my personal experience because that's what works for me. And for some, they may be in a polyfidelous relationship where it's a closed relationship, and that's what works for them. And that's wonderful and beautiful. They have the option to choose that. And that's what non-monogamy really offers people versus monogamy, is it offers you the choice and the ability to create the relationship that works for you.
So how would you define the differences between solo as opposed to friends with benefits?
Solo poly tends to be more connected emotionally. So there may be some romantic connections in there, whereas a friends with benefits would not include romance. It would include a friendship level. So, and again, however you define what a friend means versus what a lover means versus what a partner means is really up to you as an individual. But if we kind of take the general norms of what a partner is someone that you share a large portion of your life with. Maybe you cohabitate, maybe you share assets or property or children or things like that. A lover may be someone that you're romantically connected to. Maybe you're not sharing as many life components, but there's some very strong romantic, sexual, emotional connection. A friend with benefits would be someone who is a friend, who is, yeah, I care about you, I even love you, but I don't have romantic feelings for that person. But again, it really is up to the individual to figure out what that feels like for them, what that means to them, and then convey that and negotiate that with the people that they're engaged with. I hope that answers your question. Okay, that's a great question. Any other questions or thoughts or experiences?
So if I could tap into the ethical portion of this, what would you consider, or not whether it's ethical or not ethical, but how do you go into the fact of that some people, even with being in a poly lifestyle, do end up having partners who are in a quote unquote monogamous lifestyle and are doing the cheating thing? What class would you define that in, or can we just hit that a little bit?
Absolutely. For me personally, I'm no one's keeper. And so if I have a connection with someone or I meet someone and they're cheating, then I may talk to them and say, and it depends on the person, I think, as well, that I may say, I'm not comfortable engaging with you because you're not being honest about what you're doing with your other partner. So that's something that a lot of people, especially in the poly community, are very concerned about and very clear about, that they will not engage with someone if they know that that person is not being honest and ethical with any of the partners that they have. On the other hand, I can also say I'm no one's keeper, and that's not my responsibility to enforce on someone else what their decisions are. So it can go both ways. Again, I think that's a choice that every person needs to make as to what is their level of ethics, what is their level of comfort in engaging with someone who they know is not being completely ethical or 100% honest with their other partners. That's really an individual choice. And so, again, and we'll get into a little bit more as we go deeper into the next section, which is the difference between the monogamous mindset and the non-monogamous mindset. But I think that as far as the ethical side of it, it's what you decide. What's going to feel right for you? Because I can't tell you what feels right for you. I can only say what feels right for me. So, any other questions? Are you ready to move on? All right. Just there we go. Thank you. All right, so the next section is the differences between non-monogamous mindsets. So when I first encountered non-monogamous world as a recently divorced 40-something, I began with polyamory, and I entered into a triad. I had a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and they were also romantically connected, so it was a full, what we call a triad, where all three members are romantically linked and sexually linked together. And that relationship taught me so much about polyamory. It taught me about non-monogamy, and most importantly, it taught me about communication and how to really look at myself and figure out what it was that I wanted out of life. I'd come out of a 25-year monogamous relationship, and when I found polyamory, it actually tapped into something I had experienced back when I was 16. So for me, it was something that I realized way back in my teen years that I was comfortable with, I was engaging in. I didn't have a language for it, I didn't have a name for it, but I was practicing it. And then all that went away because the monogamous role came into play, and I'm supposed to be the good girl, and I'm supposed to get married and have the child and be the good girl. And so I did that for a long time, but it never felt right. And as things moved in my marriage, it came to a place where I needed to end that relationship. And when I did, I was able to come back into my own true self, my authentic self, and I found non-monogamy. And so even through that process, it's not like the switch flips and all of a sudden I'm this perfect non-monogamous person. There's a transition that happens because of that ingrained mindset of monogamy and how we communicate as monogamous people, how we look at relationships as a monogamous person, and how everything in our lives revolves around monogamy when it comes to relationships. And there really are no role models for us to look to say, what does a non-monogamous relationship look like so I can do this and be successful at it. So when I started doing research and reading books and finding different tools to help me learn about non-monogamy and polyamory, I came across a description of monogamy as the relationship escalator. I love this description. So when you're young, you're basically taught to step onto the relationship escalator, and the first step is that you date somebody. And as you're dating, then you shut off everything else. So no other people, you can't date anybody else. A lot of times your friends also start to drop off because you're so focused on that one person. And then you decide, okay, well, we need to get married. And then you get married, and then you buy the house, and then you have the baby, and then you keep going up the escalator, you raise your family, and live happily ever after. Well, for a lot of us, that doesn't happen. So then you get off that escalator, and you go back to the bottom again, and you start all over with somebody else. And you're gonna go back up that escalator. Maybe since you've already got kids, you don't have kids, or maybe you don't want kids, but there's always that progression that you're gonna go up this escalator with this one person until either it doesn't work or you die. And it's kind of like, okay, so if it doesn't work, then I go back to the bottom and I gotta start over, and then I gotta date, and then I gotta find that person, and then I gotta get married, and then I gotta, do this escalator thing. And that's what we're taught. And so in monogamous relationships, what we find is that as we're going through this process, once we kind of hit that place of dating, then our communication with that person starts to slowly kind of shut down because you've already found the person. So I don't need to necessarily tell them everything, or the engagement and the excitement and everything is kind of over. Maybe you've gotten married, maybe it's been a few years, but now it's kind of like, okay, now we're here. And communication starts to drop off for a lot of monogamous couples. So I also find that in monogamy and in my own personal experience that I found there's a lot of people who are very judgmental. And even in our own relationships, we tend to judge our partners. And as you go through your relationships, there's little things, and it could be something very small, and you kind of mumble under your breath, I wish I wouldn't do that, or And then there's all these little things that start to kind of come out in our monogamous communication because we tend to not address conflict. So as you're building a monogamous relationship, you're either having lots of conflict or you're not talking a lot at all. And it actually is very rare, and it's wonderful when I can find monogamous people who actually have really strong communication, really connected relationships, because for the most part, what we see in monogamy is that our communication skills are not developed, and we tend to talk, but we don't really engage in conversation. So we'll talk about our day. Oh, this is what happened at work. This is what happened with the kids. This is what's happening with the house. Oh, the car broke down. Oh, we've got to take care of these bills. There's a lot of talk, but there's not a lot of substance. And what I've found is when I moved into non-monogamy, boy, the substance of the communication was intense, and I was not ready for it. And there were aspects that I really struggled with. And so as we look at the difference between monogamy and non-monogamy, I kind of came up with some spoken and unspoken rules from my own experience of being in a monogamous relationship, of what it looks like and feels like and how it would progress. So a monogamous relationship is only two people at a time. The idea is that the other person completes me, that I'm not whole and complete on my own without this other person. That leave is expected. That it is a sign of love and admiration. That there's emotional and sexual fidelity expected. That there's limited or no friends of the opposite gender. There's limited time spent with other friends, family members, or coworkers because your time is expected to be spent with your spouse. That sex is expected. That sexual fantasies should be titillating, but not raunchy or highly deviant. There's a fear of cheating that creates anxiety, distrust, and restrictions for both partners. And that communication is limited to work, household issues, parenting issues, funny or interesting encounters, media or social media references, general financial issues or expenses, etc. And so many monogamous couples are really not taught how to deeply engage in conversation. Things around their true hopes, their true dreams, their fantasies, their desires, their sexual needs. The other thing I find is that, and through my own personal experience and through others that I've talked to, is that when we're young, we're taught to look outside ourselves for love, for acceptance, and for validation, rather than owning those things for ourselves and holding those things for ourselves. That we expect someone else to give us those things rather than giving it to ourselves. So in creating a non-monogamous relationship, I found it really took a big shift. And these are some of the things that I've learned along my journey in building my non-monogamous relationship in my life. And the first one is that the most important relationship I have is with myself. The number of partners I have is up to me. That I have emotional and sexual freedom. That I have many friends of the opposite gender. My time is shared according to life priorities and desires. That sex is desired or not. Sexual fantasies of all kinds are encouraged and accepted. Open and honest communication with and about all partners is critical. Communication at all levels is highly encouraged and desired. Each relationship is allowed to follow its own course. And people are free to create the relationships which work for them, to leave a relationship, transition a relationship, or unite multiple relationships as desired by those involved. And this was one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, is learning how to love and engage without attachment. In monogamy, we find that we attach ourselves to someone, that we cling to people because we're looking for that outside validation. And if we don't get it, then we feel lost. And through my journey, I found that non-monogamy has actually brought me closer to myself, that I am the person that I want to be. I don't have to be that person for anybody else. I get to be that person for me. And then I get to share that person with whoever I want to share that person with. And as many as I want. And whenever I want. And however I want. And I have found that that is one of the most important pieces about having a non-monogamous mindset, is that it starts here. It's not about taking the relationship that you have, or the relationships that you've had in the past, and now having that same type of relationship with multiple people. It's about totally redefining who you are and embracing this person first and foremost. And that this is the person you have the most important relationship with. And every day when I wake up, I tell myself how much I love myself. And that I'm excited about today. And that this is the day for me. Because I'm the only person that I'm with 24/7, 7 days a week, every day of my life. I'm not with my daughter, I'm not with my parents, I'm not with my husband, I'm not with my lovers, every day of my life. I'm with me, every day of my life. And so, if we start building our non-monogamous relationships by building that first relationship with ourselves, then I find that we have better relationships with the people that we have relationships with, whether it's monogamous or non-monogamous. Whether it's your parents or your children or your friends or your lovers or your spouse, all those relationships benefit from each other. And that is one of the messages that I bring to non-monogamy, is that it's not about the numbers. It's not about even the configurations. It's not about whether I choose to be solo poly or polyfidelis or a swinger or whatever it is. Those are all manifestations of what happens in you. Those are all the results of what happens in you. And so it's taking a journey of really going inside and being very intentional and very deliberate and very self-reflective about who you are and who you want to be, and then who you want to bring that person to, and how you engage outside of the world. And so that is my take on the difference between a non-monogamous and a monogamous. There's a lot of heads nodding. What are you ladies thinking?
What's the difference between a triad, a V, and a triad?
Okay. So a triad is literally a connected triangle. So there's 3 people, and they are all interconnected. So all 3 are emotionally, romantically, sexually connected. A V has a pivot point at the bottom. So there's one person that is connected to 2 people, but those 2 people are not necessarily connected. They might not even know each other. They might have met. They might be friends, but there's no romantic or sexual connection between them. A tribe is a group that has come together in a polyamorous configuration to decide which of the members may or may not be connected. So within, say, if there's a tribe of 8, you may have some people that are triads, you might have some Bs, you might even have what we call Ws. So a W is someone's here and someone's here. This person's connected with this person and this person. This person's connected to these two. This person's connected to these two. So there's like a common person here. It's like a V and a V that are upside down, kind of connected like this. So that, I think that's the best I could describe for those 3 configurations. And really within a tribe, it is up to the group members who's connected to it. That's a great question.
Do tribes typically live together in a community?
Not always. They may live near each other, and they may gather together frequently. There was, when I lived in Seattle, there was a tribe that I met one person who was within the tribe, and so she kind of described to me how her tribe worked. And I think they had 8, that's how they used 8.
How did metamorph work in those?
So a metamor is my partner's other partner. So for example, my husband has a girlfriend. So the way that our configuration works is we're a V, we can call it a V relationship. So he's the pivot, he's the connector. I live here in Ventura and she lives in Seattle. So he goes back and forth between the two. He spends some time up there and then some time down here. When we first met, I had met her and we actually started on a journey to see how connected we could become. And after about a year and a half, I decided that it was not a connection that worked for me. And so through that process, we kind of had to, instead of moving more towards what I'll call a connected V, where we would be friends, but not lovers, we've completely separated. So I don't have contact with her, I don't engage with her, I know she's still there, but I don't have a relationship with her. And so that's sometimes can happen. It can make things more challenging. And yet again, I think it depends on the people that are involved and how well or willing they are to communicate and work through those situations. It's something that could have ended the relationship between me and my husband, but it didn't. And so we were able to actually become stronger going through that process. And he came to a place where he recognized that the life that he really wants to build, his non-monogamous life, is here in Ventura, and in the relationship that we have, his girlfriend is monogamous. And so she does not have any other partners and does not choose to engage in non-monogamy as a practice for herself. So that has other issues as well. So for him, he wants to build a non-monogamous life. He wants to have multiple partners. And so his relationship with her is in a different place today. They've been together almost 10 years from where they first met. And a lot has changed in his life and through their life and their journey, their experience. And so we'll see what happens in the future.
How do you live with that kind of, like, didn't you get jealous of her since you couldn't be together?
For me personally, I'm not a terribly jealous person. So for me, no, it was not because we started our relationship with that configuration. I lived on my own. They lived in a house, and he would come and spend time with me, and then he would go back to spend time with her. So it wasn't a relationship that we opened up where we were together for a long time, and then we added someone else into the relationship. When he and I met, we were both practicing non-monogamy and had other relationships. So I actually had the triad. I was in the triad when I met him. And so for us, there was not a lot of jealousy. But for some people that are just entering into non-monogamy from a monogamous relationship, if they're looking to open up, say, a marriage of 10 years, then jealousy is something that they will absolutely want to address and understand that jealousy is an emotion. And it's an emotion that helps us understand our own personal insecurities. So many times we look at jealousy as, well, that person or something outside me is making me jealous. But really, when we break down what jealousy is, it's an insecurity that you fear losing someone or something. That someone else or something else is going to take something away from you. And that then taps into your insecurities and your fears. And it's not about the other person. And so when we can break it down to really understand where jealousy comes from, then we can address the root issue, which is not the other person. It's, okay, I need to share with my partner that this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I'm losing a part of you, that now that you're starting to date someone else, you're not spending as much time with me, and I have this fear that this person's going to take you away from me. Rather than it's her fault or his fault and they're taking you away and blaming that other person. It's not about that. It's about what's going on here. And again, that's part of that journey of that self-reflection and that self-discovery is knowing we've got to look inside first before we look outside. And so when we're feeling jealous or we're feeling rejected in some way, or we're feeling lonely when our partner's out on a date, think about why are we feeling that way? Why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling lonely? Why am I feeling depressed today? Well, my partner's on a date. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that they're not spending time with me. Okay, so if they're not spending time with you, are you spending time with you? What are you doing to spend time with yourself during that time? Maybe use that for self-care time. Oh, I'm gonna go out with my friends and go to movies. Maybe I'm gonna take a hot bath with some candles and do some aromatherapy. Maybe I'll do some yoga. Maybe I'll watch a movie I want to watch. And maybe there's some crafting things or a hobby that I enjoy doing, and this gives me time to focus on that. Building that relationship with yourself. We forget to do that. And so we see that piece of that person's not here to engage me. So now I feel lost. I'm not lost. You're right here. I'm right here. But it's that mind shift. We have to shift that thinking because, again, monogamy says I'm supposed to spend all my time with this person. So now all of a sudden they're off with somebody else. And yet, if they were going out with the boys or the girls or whoever, work, party or whatever, would you feel jealous? Would you feel lonely? Maybe, maybe not. But it's sometimes we try to say, well, it's a work thing, so I understand, and it's okay. Oh, it's a family thing. You got to go see your parents. Okay, that's cool. Oh, you're going out with the guys tonight or the girls tonight. Yeah, okay, that's cool. But now it's a romantic partner. Why is it any
been taught. And so we have to unlearn those behaviors, those thoughts, those beliefs, and readjust and say, I'm excited they're going. How fun is that? Next week I could be. So it's that shift.
Yes, and getting more into that self-awareness and that shift of maybe someone who is formerly in a monogamous relationship or a monogamous marriage, decided to do the poly thing, didn't work out, but now I am becoming a solely poly person. Within that self-awareness and that self-love and exploration, how would you say to the person to try and re-trigger the ring or relearn that so many things that they did in that monogamous lifestyle, that monogamous relationship, to pull back and to realize they don't need to ask for permission or they don't need to fear, I want to say, fear responses or fear or jealousy. How do you retrain your brain to be able to allow for true poly relationships?
I think the first thing is tuning into awareness of how you feel. And so many times we feel something and we get into that, there's that immediate trigger. So the example I use is when I drive and somebody cuts you off or something happens, and you grip the wheel, and then it's like, oh, wait, I don't need to get upset. They didn't hit my car, there was no accident, nothing happened. Okay, take that deep breath, it's all good, I can go on. And it's a little bit the same way. So when you start to feel a trigger or something, and you recognize all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I don't feel good. Then it's like, okay, let me stop. Why don't I feel good? And the more, and at whatever point down that road, you can catch yourself. That's where you start. So even if you've got a whole day, and at the end of the day, you realize that you're climbing into bed and you go, oh, man, I really let that get to me today, didn't I? Why did I do that? Okay, so it was this that triggered me. And then I allowed that to happen, and then I spiraled down, and I felt really bad. But you know what, right now, I can say, I recognize that feeling. And the next time that I feel that, I'm going to try to catch it a little bit sooner. And then the next time, a little bit sooner. A little bit sooner. Until finally, in a progression of catching yourself earlier and earlier and earlier when those triggers happen, because they will, because we're all conditioned in some way. We all have our own triggers, right? So as you go through that awareness process and really tune in, oh, yeah, that happened. And you catch it within a minute or 2 or 3, instead of at the end of the day. It might take you a month, it might take you 6 months, it could take you a year. But it's just that progression. Every time something happens and you catch yourself just a little bit sooner, you say, oh, yeah, I don't need to feel that. Or, that's my normal MO. I don't want to change that. I don't want to feel that way. So how can I feel differently? What would make me feel better right now? And sometimes it's just letting it go and focusing on something else that feels good. Sometimes you can say, wow, I'm really feeling jealous. And I don't want to feel jealous. So how can I look at this and say, what feels good about this? It feels good that I know that person is having a good time. And, and again, it's a progression. Pick yourself up. It's not flipping a switch. It's really not. And I again, I'm coming up on 6 years of doing this, and it's a lot of work. It's been a lot of work. But I look back now and I go, wow, look where I came from, and look where I am today. And 6 years is not that long. It's really not. And as you become more aware, it happens sooner and sooner. And especially when you become very intentional and you do, I do a lot of teaching on awareness meditation and giving people processes and ways that they can really do the inner work. And in those processes, it's tapping in to who you are, what you want, your feelings, your emotions, and finding what feels good. And that's really one of the keys, is feeling good.
I found that too. We're taught a lot of times that some emotions are bad and some emotions are good. Like, happy is a good emotion. Sad is a bad emotion, you better get over it. Because no one likes a sad person. So when you stop judging emotions as good or bad and just accept them as what they are, then when you encounter jealousy or anger or sadness, you then embrace it and process it instead of saying, that's bad, and I need to stop feeling that, because that just tends to make things worse. That was an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Absolutely. Yeah. And that is a key point, is that there's a lot of judgment, as I said before, there's judgment in a lot of aspects of life. We judge our emotions too. And when we stop that judgment, it allows us to just accept, okay, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling mad, I'm feeling jealous, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling rage, whatever it is. Okay, I am here. And I can be here for now, but I know I'm not going to be here forever. And what can I do, if anything, in the moment? And sometimes in the moment, you can't do anything about it. You have to just be there and let it happen. And then when it subsides and you're ready to move on, then you can process that and say, what can I do differently next time? And then go from there. Thank you for that. That's great. All right. You ready for our last piece? All right. So the last one is, how do morals and values play out in monogamy and non-monogamy? So many people who do not understand non-monogamy will say it is cheating with permission, or it is immoral and deviant because it incorporates multiple people in sexual and emotional bonds. They question how someone can be committed to more than one person. Some people negatively judge and even refute the idea that being an ethical slut, and that it's possible to be safer in sexual activities than those who practice serial monogamy or playing the field as a single person. What I have found in my experience is that people who are non-monogamous tend to talk more openly about sex, about STIs and STDs. We tend to be tested more often, and engaging in those conversations actually creates a safer sex environment than someone who is cheating, and someone who is monogamously playing the field. Because even playing the field, they may not be telling people that they're dating multiple people. And so they're having sex with 3 or 4 different people, but they're not disclosing that they have more than one partner. And then those people may not be disclosing that they have more than one partner. And so there's a higher risk in the monogamous world, especially for non-married or non-partnered people, of having STIs, because they're not having the conversations. Whereas people in non-monogamy tend to have much more detailed conversations around sex and STIs and testing. And that's, at least in the experience that I've had in the communities that I've engaged in. And so those come from those ideas that it's deviant and that it's unethical and how can someone be committed. That comes from the monogamous mindset, which is the basis of our moral and legal system regarding relationships. All the laws around how people can marry, how property and assets are divided after a marriage ends, either through death or divorce, are all built around the monogamous mindset. And some religious groups, because they believe in polygamy, those have been outlawed in Western culture. So there's a lot of monogamous mindset that is built into our legal system and our social and moral systems. And until recently, marriage was strictly defined as one man, one woman. And as we know, the LGBT community, which has been growing and becoming stronger and more vocal and more accepted, has finally broken that barrier to say that we now can have marriage between two people, regardless of gender. So that's a huge step in the direction for non-monogamy to take the next step, which we'll see hopefully in the next 30 years down the road, that our legal system will change, that marriage may look very different, that there may be multiple marriages, or there may be other ways that people can connect themselves legally to multiple people. Because what we find is we have relationships, strong emotional bonded relationships with multiple people, and yet when one person gets sick and goes in the hospital, their partners are not allowed to have any information. They may not even be allowed to visit them because they're not family members. And there's a lot of issues around custody and children in multiple relationships, where people have lost custody or cannot share custody of children because the laws are set up in such a way that it's only two people that can be legally connected. And so one of the things that the LGBT community had developed for them somewhere around 35, 40 years ago was the actual acronym of LGBT. It was actually coined by the travel industry to bring this group of people together so that they could market vacations and travel packages to this very unique group of people. And so ECNM, our Ethical and Consensual Non-Monogamy, or Non-Monogamous, is an acronym that we are creating to move forward in the same thread as LGBT, to unite people of all non-monogamous shades, as I described earlier, to bring them under one umbrella so that we have a voice. And as this movement starts to go forward, we will be able to have more of a voice in the community, a voice in the country, and potentially a voice in recreating our legal system to benefit those of us that practice it, which is, we heard, are somewhere between 15 and 20% of the population. So it's a big part of the population. So at this point, there's a lot of not just the social and the morals that revolve around non-monogamy that doesn't support us, but we don't have laws that support us at all. And in fact, I had a personal situation when I got divorced, and my ex found out that I was practicing non-monogamy, and that had an impact on my custody, my daughter. And so, as a first-hand experience, I know what that's like to be authentic, to be the person that I was meant to be, but yet have that legal piece hung over me to say that there were issues that he used to threaten me with, legal issues that he used to threaten me with. And so it was a very interesting time I can look back now and be okay with it because things have grown and changed in those 6 years since I divorced. But it was very real. I've had friends lose jobs because somebody outed them. So, they happened to mention to a coworker that they were polyamorous, and the next thing they know, they're being called into the boss's office and being let go. So it's real and it happens. And so the laws and the moral things that happen around polyamory, we want to change. We really want to work on changing that, and the only way that we can do that is by having people, and I'm one of them, to be that trailblazer, to speak up and to speak out and not be afraid anymore. And so I appreciate that you're all here and supporting me in doing this. And so the idea that people can be ethical and consensual and committed in multiple relationships is hard for a lot of people to understand, especially people of older generations. A lot of the younger generations, they get it, they understand it, they just don't have role models. They don't have the role models to do it. But one of the things I like to describe is when someone asks about, well, how can you be committed to more than one person? Because I do get that question quite often. And so this is the way that I describe it to them. We have multiple friends we do things with. Some friends like physical activities, hiking, biking. Some friends like going out to dinner and dancing. Some enjoy board games and conversation. Some like going to the movies. I enjoy all my friends, but in different ways. My friends may come and go. I might have different friends, but I have friends throughout my life. I have multiple family members. Some are closer than others. Some people I see regularly, some infrequently. Some people I don't see at all. We have people who are older and younger. We love our family members in different ways at different levels. And family members come and go. We have family members who die, family members who remain. We have various work associates. Some work closely together. Some we collaborate and bounce ideas off one another. We support each other. We help each other. We teach and lead some and follow others. We engage with work and business associates in ways that benefit each other. And yet, we're only supposed to have one romantic partner. One partner that we have sex with for the rest of our lives. One partner that I can only share my hopes and dreams with. One person to help raise my children with. One person I can only live with. And one person I can only commit to for the rest of my life. But yet I have all these other people in my life at all these different levels. And yet society says I can only have the one romantic relationship. And
It takes a bitch.
it does. It does. And so when I look at that, and I say, well, but I have more to give. I have more to give than just to my one partner. I have so much more to give. And so much of more I want to receive. And why can't I create the people in my life to be my husband, my lover, my girlfriend, my friends with benefits, all the people that I want to have? Just like I have lots of people I work with, lots of friends that I do things with, lots of family members. I want lots of people in my life, my core life too. And yet society says that's not okay. So I am being that trailblazer. And it's beautiful. So our society helps, it sets the default. It sets the default that this is the way you're supposed to do it. And we're taught that from the time we are really, really young. And most of us fall into that along the way at one point or another. And for those of us that are a little bit on the older spectrum, we're starting to find, I don't have to live that life anymore. And whether it's opening up a marriage or ending a marriage and starting over, starting in a new way. For younger generations, we're seeing more and more millennials and even the next generation coming up. They're much more fluid, they're much more accepting, they're much more open, but yet they still don't have the role models. They don't have the people to look to, they don't have the mentors, they don't have the TV shows or the ads or the music that talks about having multiple loves, having multiple relationships, having that tribe, that community that supports what they want. And so this is what we're creating. This is the beginning of our movement. And it's really exciting. So that's what I have for tonight. So any other thoughts on society and how we can move forward?
I think poly relationships have been lightly touched. Even in old Hollywood, it was just labeled differently. A lot of box office classic movie stars, through research I found out, were gay. Secretly gay, and they would go to this one obscure gas station, and the owner knew and would set them up with this lover or that lover, and if they weren't lovers, then they could meet their complete clandestine manner. Yeah, that was awesome.
That's great.
Movie-wise, I have in my collection Threesome.
Nice.
You know, in addition to Secretary. So I mean, it's there. It's just more on the independent circuit.
Yes.
That one's more nationally known for Threesome, but generally it's more on the independent. I mean, there's websites that like Poly Matchmaker.
More than two.
That if you're new, there's all the terminology. And I remember when that was Yahoo. And I remember the owner and to see how she has, managed to take a little bitty group and now it's a huge website after more than 20 years.
It's there.
It's there.
It's just underground still.
It's slowly peaking.
It's slowly peaking.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's not the mainstream.
It's not mainstream, and what we also still find is that there's pockets. So there's a pocket here and a pocket here and a pocket there, and they're kind of independent. They're not all under one umbrella. They're not connected. Some are connected to each other, some are not. There is more and more growing, especially with the internet. There's a lot more on YouTube, there's a lot more podcasts, there's more books that are coming out. And yet still it hasn't peaked to the point yet where there's a thread or an umbrella to kind of bridge it all together. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping to work towards, is creating that umbrella and that bridge so that non-monogamy overall, regardless of what you practice, whether it's poly, tween, or friends with benefits, or open, whatever you want to call it, however you configure it, that you fall under that category of non-monogamy, and that there is an organization or a place or a group or something that will bring it all together so that we have that voice like the LGBT community. And we can bring all those little pieces together, all those organizations, and have some voice and have some power as we move forward. Because it really is going to change the world in the next 30 years, just like the LGBT community. You think back, like you said, they were Hollywood, 40, 50 years ago, completely in the closet. You couldn't say you were gay, you couldn't say you were a lesbian,
You
or
couldn't say that you were poly, and I know a house that I pass on one all the time, that it was a famous director who was married, and he kept his mistress in the apartment next to his house. Yeah, and there was a secret staircase that he would go
between the houses.
between the houses, and that house is now owned by Spielberg Studios.
Oh, wow. That's
The
awesome.
last I heard, but yeah.
Yeah.
We were going to take a drive to Shelburne.
Well, and then there's people, I believe there was, I don't know if it's confirmed, that Warren Buffett is also polyamorous. So there are people of all levels in society that are practicing this. And it's just a matter of how vocal people are choosing to be at this point. So it does exist, and it has for millennia, for a long time. That people have practiced multiple relationships, and tribes, back thousands of years ago, lived as tribes. It was the village. The village raised the children. The village hunted together. They worked together. They lived together. They loved together. They had sex together. It was the village. Everybody was there. And now we have lost that. And so some of us are rebuilding that in our own way, in our own little tribes, in our own little communities that we're wanting to build. So, beautiful. Well, thank you very much for going on this part of my journey with me. And thank you very much as well. So, any further questions or final statements?